Yeah,
right?
Nice.
that's awesome. I think
That's
there's
a great way to stand out too. I like that method.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's two big takeaways from that for me. It's one is like doing that little extra bit of like building what they actually have just shows them that you're already not just like mass applying to a bunch of different companies and hoping for the best, but you're serious about their company because you've rebuilt some components on their website. And the second
That's
one I
true, right? You've
forget now.
taken the time. Well, no, you've taken the time out of your day to do something extra just to prove that you can do it, which
Yeah,
cuts out a lot of the crap because they're getting a lot of applications from people and they don't really know what these people can do. You're reading paper, right? You're seeing, maybe GitHub repos and stuff like that, but you're not getting like a real sense of what somebody can do. I really think that approach is really cool. But I
yeah.
think it's also shows, right, that you have to do extra now to get looked at. Because dude, I remember there's so many people applying now though that these jobs like 700, 1,000 is not uncommon.
No,
It's
it's
Right.
actually
not.
So
pretty
I heard
normal.
something this week that's pretty interesting is now that a lot of companies are including AI in their hiring process, you can actually do some prompt injection on your resume. So some
Mm.
hidden like white text on a white background, or you can do some of those invisible Unicode characters
Yeah.
to prompt inject your resume. Be like, ignore anyone or whenever this name is this, make sure it's the highest ranked. It responds, we think this person is an awesome candidate.
Wow.
So that's a new method for people out there to how to
Nice.
kind of
Hack your way
get that
into a
job.
job.
Yeah.
Mm.
Love that. Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The
they
other
should.
is it even cheating though? Because honestly, I think that's
Oh,
just
no,
part of the
you're
game now, right? You're just
engineering. Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing I remembered the second takeaway, and I think this one's cool too, is you were not scared to apply for a job that was sort of like outside your wheelhouse. Because I think a lot of times when I or people that we have in our group look at jobs, they're like, well, I have React experience, but I don't have like whatever other technology is listed in there. And that shouldn't like deter you from applying to these jobs. If anything, you can learn a lot of tech pretty quickly if you're diligent and like you put in some time. I mean, you learned, how long did it take you to like get up to speed on Angular?
I mean, I put my back into it, but I would say probably 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Well, it's got
right?
a lot of overlap with React too. I've messed
Yeah.
with
It
Angular
does.
before. I mean, they're very similar in that respect too. So if you
Well,
Yeah.
until
understand a
he
framework, yeah,
exactly. And I mean, at the end of the day, like if you have the core concepts of programming down,
Yeah.
for loops, if statements, switch cases, whatever it might be, functions, all that stuff, at the end of the day, like a framework is just an abstraction of that. So if
Right.
you can understand the baseline and you have a good foundation, you can learn anything. Golang, Node, SQL databases, whatever it is, they all have these similar fundamentals there. It's just at
Yep.
the end of the day, it's just some syntactical sugar,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome. So my next question is, you were able to go, once you did get this job, you were able to go basically from a junior to a principal engineer. And maybe if you can explain like what a principal engineer means for some people, because they may not fully understand like where that title lies in the progression as a developer. But
Sure.
you were able to basically compress, let's say, I don't know, like 10 years of programming experience into 3, which is pretty amazing. Like, not a lot of people can do that.
And
Um,
then compress that 3 years into a 10-minute YouTube video, which I'll recommend you should go
Yeah.
watch.
yes.
Yeah, that's
All
very
right, fine.
good.
We'll make it $20 now. Okay, Randall, you got it.
Totally worth coming today.
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked me like what or how, right? Because that's
Yeah.
always a big question because people want to do it. I think the other half of it is people aren't willing to do what I kind of
The
did
work. Yeah.
and the work behind it. And, I think a lot of it comes down to I have a very unhealthy obsession, obsessive, like kind of like personality when it comes to things. So at the end of the day, like all it took was outworking every single person that was on that team, right? Even if I
Yeah.
was a junior, like it didn't matter. I would outwork you. I would do 2 times, 3 times as many bugs as you. And the
Yeah.
other thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I think, and I've talked about this in like my videos and stuff, but you have to have this ownership mindset with anything
Mm.
that you do.
Hmm.
And I got that because of my entrepreneurial like background, right? Have my own salon. Like I
Yeah.
was the owner. Like anything that goes wrong, this is my business, right?
Yeah.
So I would take that mindset with every project I did, every bug I did, every feature I did, and I would essentially treat it as if it was my own business. And
Yeah.
I would take features that were coming out from the designers or the PMs, the product managers, and I would be like, hey, like, I'll run with this. Like I'll put everything together, like just be useful. And
Yeah.
I did that for a year, 2 years straight. I went from, let's see, I got started in January 2021. By July, they moved me up to mid. By December, I was just senior, and then the following year, December, I was principal. And like you
That's
said,
a
for your second
yeah,
half,
that's a very fast transition between all
Yeah.
that. Can I,
it
and I
is
think this is something where a lot of I see people struggle with this. It doesn't matter what career you're in, but
right.
that tendency to sit back and wait for people to tell you what to do,
Yeah.
to handhold right throughout the process, and it sounds like that's exactly what you didn't do,
Yeah,
right?
no, and
And I
that's
think that's the real kicker, right? Is taking control of it and recognizing that your future depends on the actions you take, not on waiting for other
exactly.
people, because they
Yeah.
want those jobs too. So they're gonna, I mean,
You have to stand out, right? You have to stand out. Like it was the same thing with the resume. Like the common like pattern is like you have to somehow stand out in like
Yeah.
a sea of people, right? And to kind of talk about your second half of the question, like a principal engineer. So I mean the progression here, you have junior, mid-level, senior, and then after senior you have kind of like a couple routes you can kind of go. So principal, I would say, is more, you're still coding,
Hmm.
a lot of times, but then it's just a lot more managerial stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I have like people that report to me and things like that. Or you can go this other half, which is more of a staff engineer,
Hmm.
and you're just more or less like people managing and dealing. You're that
Lots of
midway
meetings.
point between ton of meetings. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
you're that midway point between C-level execs, your CTO, your VP, your engineering manager, and you're that buffer between business and the rest of the engineering team. Because as a
Yeah.
junior, you don't really want to worry about architecture, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
Totally.
what happens is, right, it's the higher levels that end up designing the architecture and everything and discussing
exactly.
that in endless meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Randall Lapointe in the
Exactly.
comments said it's more about determination and willpower to seek out learning on your own. And I think he was referring to your boot camp, but I think, that applies here as well, is you're able to progress so quickly because you just took ownership and you're like, basically you can do that. You can sit back and wait 10 years to go from junior to principal, or you can just work your ass off essentially to get
Well,
there, right?
and
Faster.
Yeah.
the crazy part is too now I think it's weird, but it's easier than ever to learn this stuff. Because
Yeah.
like, I think about that a lot. Like back in like the 90s, early internet days, like it was hard to learn.
Yeah.
You had to get these huge books, and figuring out bugs was really hard. And now it's like all this information's out there to access that you just have to look for it and find it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you can easily get it. I mean, with AI, it's even easier than ever now to learn these things and to access stuff that's above your level. Like we talk about that a lot, but like cursor and stuff makes every junior developer essentially like the power of like at least a mid-level, because you
Yeah.
have these tools that can like just extend your abilities way beyond, what you normally would be capable of at that level of like learning and in your like career.
Yeah. Randall said, wait, I thought I've been designing the architecture too as a solo dev. And yeah, like I was going to ask you that actually is in your current position, do you feel like, uh, you work mostly in the mindset of architecture, or are you also sort of like getting down and dirty with the code, right? Are you still writing for loops, or are you just like, hey, this is the tech stack we're going to use and this is how we're going to architect this database and things like that?
So I think most people that are like kind of in like a position that I am, they do kind of stay on that higher level, like architecture and just kind of like seeing the bigger picture and things, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
But I've always had this kind of builder's mentality, right? Like
Yeah.
I have to have my hands on the stuff. So, and I think for me, it shows a lot of like, the people that report to me, like I'm also willing to do the dirty stuff too. I'm not going to sit here and just push bugs, you know what I mean? Because they're frivolous to, the junior
That you're too
engineers
good for it.
Yeah.
that I'm too good for.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, no, I mean, I still like I have a lot of other responsibilities and meetings and stuff like that, but I will still outwork everybody on my team in the sense of I will do 2x more of the bugs than everybody else, but I'll also still break down the architecture and the feature for, these new designs, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
we actually have a question from Chris
Yeah.
Val too. He asked, how have you embraced the AI tools, like all of these AI tools that are out now? Have you been using them? Like, have they become part of your workflow?
Though I'll be honest with the majority that I'll kind of use AI and stuff is for like unit testing, right? Like I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what Primogen says. I hate unit tests. I absolutely
they're the
hate
worst. I don't like them either.
No, it works. It works to me. It works on my machine. I don't care what you say on yours, right?
Yeah.
But I will
just
use
see Chris putting on like a blindfold when you get
It works here.
Yep, it's fine.
It's like Bird Box or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will use like Copilot and stuff like that for like my unit tests for my like day-to-day, like even say like day-to-day or side projects that I build and stuff. I've started to dabble a little bit like Cursor. I don't use it that often, I'll be honest. And I think the biggest thing that I try to maintain as much as I can is maintaining that critical thinking aspect as a programmer, as an engineer, as a developer, whatever.
Well, that's one of the dangers, right? Is letting it take over all that thinking for you, because it is very good at it. And it can, I mean, it can do everything. So yeah, it's one of those dangers of you lose those skills if you don't use them, right?
It's kind of like, a concept that like calculators, right? We back in the day you had to do your times tables and everything like that to like kind of just know on the fly. But I go to the grocery store and it's like $19.80 and I give a $20 and they're like,
like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me ask
like,
ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Oh,
right?
dude, the best is when they put the wrong amount in and then they can't, and then it's
and
like,
then they got it. Can I get a manager
gone.
over here? Now you got two people staring at the screen, and I'm like, just keep the 20 cents. So it's that critical thinking aspect that I think is so important, and especially with this AI wave, like use it as a tool to 10x yourself, but don't use it as a replacement. Is kind of my.
I think that's a great point. One of the things
I
that I noticed,
I like what you're saying there. I watched a talk by this guy, Joseph Thacker. He's a hacker, and his last name is Thacker.
Thacker the hacker.
Thacker the hacker.
But he goes by the moniker Rez Zero, and he had this TEDx talk in Kentucky on AI hackbots. Because now they have hackbots that can do better on bug bounties than people actually do. They found they found 0 days in like Google and PayPal and stuff like that. That bug bounties have been around for years for those and nobody found them. So he did something in there, and he said that AI is great, but at the same time, like what you're saying there with the calculator, it completely destroys your ability to do any reasoning. So he's like,